To provide her thoughts, please welcome our opening speaker today, Autodesk's VP for Industrialized Construction Strategy and Evangelism, the brilliant Amy Marks. Amy, many thanks for joining us here today.
It's my pleasure.
Lovely to see you, Amy. Lovely to see you. Amy, we have got a lot of stuff, a lot of thoughts, a lot of insights to get through today. So I think without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you to walk us through our opening thoughts, to set the scene for us today. Your slides should be up there now. So I'm going to hand over to you and get out of the way. Amy, over to you.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate you for having me today. It's great to see everybody here today. And I think what's really important for us to learn about convergence, there's so much out there. If your business is changing today, most likely it's happening because of convergence. You know, we see technology actually converging. I always say this is no longer my phone. This is my babysitter, my map, my social life. It's my entertainment. It's my computer. Technology is converging. And also we see process converging. It's no longer just a process for design or a process for manufacturing or a process. We need a platform to connect lots of these processes together. They're no longer living in silos by themselves in our space. And then industries are converging. And that is most evident that when convergence happens in our space, we're seeing industrialized construction. We're seeing architects that need to understand kits of parts. We even see them opening up their own fabrication facilities. I have owners opening up fabrication facilities. We hear them saying playbook kits of parts. They are getting much more involved in the make and then design. We see contractors actually moving into the systems integration space. And obviously they've always been, involved in design build, but we see the makers also converging. We see manufacturers converging, true building product manufacturers, and subcontractors actually converging into the makers. So what does that mean? It means business models are actually changing. And that's important because people are no longer living in their business models of these silos. And so therefore it's not enough just to have automation within your silo or digitization within your silo. We know that the business outcomes are different. Your drivers are different. That's super important to note, right? And we see a lot of industry trends happening. Look, a lot of this started way before the pandemic was going on. And we know that it's only sped up as we've talked about, right? So you've seen globalization and urbanization happening, climate change, and obviously the requirements of all of this are being, imposed upon us, and rightly so. COVID-19 has made things just move so much faster. But I do think some of the industry trends that we need to recognize about industrialized construction have been happening for 20 years due to things like project complexity, the labor shortages, and a lot about consolidation, right? As you have pressure on systems, things tend to merge and move together. That's important to note. So we've seen a lot of this in the news, but you are feeling it most in your businesses. And I think the drivers for your businesses have changed. By the way, I said this at the MEP Innovation Forum this week. Sometimes we forget, just like other ecosystems, because we're not an industry, we're an ecosystem of lots of industries. They use the old adage, garbage in and garbage out. We have to start thinking the same. You can have lots of information here, you can have lots of data, you can automate lots of things. If it's not the right data, if it's not the data that actually results in something real, then we have to think about what is the outcome of that going to be, right? So McKinsey actually did a report prior to COVID, and it kind of came out in the beginning of COVID, and they said 45% of everything in our ecosystem is going to move towards industrialized construction in the next 15 years. Now, they talked about why that is. The industry dynamics are changing. We're seeing lots of differences about the customer base, about the labor, so all the things we talked about in the trends, right? Integration and consolidation. And the emerging disruptions, there were actually about 9 they mentioned, but about 66% of the respondents thought that industrialization and digitization had the highest impact. That was going to be in the next 15 years. If you read down into the study itself, it said in the next 1 to 3 years, industrialization as a result of a product-led approach, not a process, a product-led approach. is going to have the most impact. Now, that was almost 2 years ago, that study. And so, interestingly enough, we've seen this happening for the last 5 to 10 years. I'm showing an example. This was shown at the Advancing Prefabrication show that's coming up in April. And this was GSK talking about their kit of parts, how they're looking at the pieces and parts of their fabrication, of their, manufacturing facilities. They're not looking at it anymore like it's design, build pieces of the building. They are really recognizing that not just the equipment, but the building itself is looked at as kits of parts and equipment. And the aggregation of those and the generative design that they can get out of productizing these things, they are looking at their buildings and digital twin and things like that differently because of the articulation of product-led approach as evidenced by industrialized construction. We had a big event last year at Advancing Prefab. And at that, we had a lot of CEOs and VPs of lots of different companies from across the ownership of, big owners, big manufacturers, big GCs, big architects. 82% of the people in the audience, of almost 1,000 people, said that their companies, they're describing themselves as convergence customers, meaning crossing over one of the silos as evidenced by some sort of industrialized construction. 79% of them are on a journey for productization. Heavy MEP building applications are moving fastest. Why? The complexity is there, the cost is there, the risk is there for many of these companies. We always talk a lot about housing and industrialized construction. Actually, the majority of industrialized construction that's happening is in the heavy MEP applications of data centers, hospitals, manufacturing facilities. That's the places we need this the most. And I think because of that, we have to really think about how do we at Autodesk change what's going on. It's not enough just to have a model of something. Building information modeling is great and the eye is information, but it needs to be informed by something intelligent and real. So people keep saying these words design make, and I keep saying we have to flip it. It needs to be operate make design. How do we create a place where we can get information in real time about what can actually be made and understand the rules and constraints of them, but still work within our own tools as designers, as an example, but pull the real data so that it's discoverable. We can still customize it and have one-to-many mapping, so one model to many instances, but still only change things and customize them within their manufacturing constraints. You need manufacturing tools and software in order to do that. It needs to be in the cloud, so it's shareable. We need to digitize the make information in real time and allow architects to still customize it and use it to free them and enable them to do more things and spend their time on the parts of the building that they want to spend time on. So we have a framework that we've actually developed at Autodesk. And really, I work through the customer success and consulting organizations here to help people on this transformation. And I would tell you that, Paul's going to talk to you about outcomes. And this is an aggregation of many of the different outcomes that our customers are looking for. They want a strategy for how things are going to be done. I would tell you, you first need to look at readiness and foundational skills and tools and culture. You can't connect the platform stack in many different ways unless you have the stack. And it's not just about Autodesk. I always say, this is my Apple platform, my phone. It comes with preloaded software on it. But then there's an ecosystem, think the Forge ecosystem and apps that are available, and other companies that have capabilities that you can connect through APIs. And the thing about a platform is that it's a unique end user experience. I always say, look, I'm a New Jersey single mom, eats keto, can't get from here to there without Waze on my phone. My experience with this platform is different than a 25-year-old married farmer in Iowa using the same product, right? So we've got to transform across this through productization, and only then can we optimize with things like industrialized construction. The last thing I'll say is we're moving towards circularity for this. Digital waste exponentially leads to physical waste. The number one thing you can do on this planet is get manufacturing informed design productization to avoid the waste, the 40% of construction waste in our landfills. I'm here to help you as a resource at Autodesk. Our consulting and customer success organizations are here too. And I'm always available. You can reach out to me on any social media platform at the Queen of Prefab.
Great stuff. Amy, many thanks for setting our scene here today. I love those themes, the idea of taking a more product-led approach, this idea of data, treating data as an asset, circularity and sustainability, of course. They are all themes that are going to run through today's events. So thank you so much for touching upon those and for setting our scene. Amy Marks, many thanks.
Thank you.